A bottle of water and a bottle of gasoline sit right next to each other at a gas station. Same price. Stop and think about it, how insane that is. The gasoline had to be found a mile underground, drilled, pumped across an ocean, and cracked in a refinery. The water fell out of the sky for free. Same price. We treat water like it's infinite. It runs out of the tap. It's stacked in every 7-Eleven. It falls out of the clouds. Feels like there is always more. But that feeling is the most expensive mistake of the century. Yeah, most of the planet is water, but 97% of it is salt. Most of the rest is frozen in the ice caps, glaciers. So what's left for every farm, every city, every chip factory, every AI model on Earth to run on? Less than 1% of all the water there is. And the world has already started fighting over that 1%. Countries are shutting off each other's rivers. Water treaties that survived actual nuclear standoffs are getting torn up in a single afternoon. Entire seas have vanished inside of one human lifetime. And this is the part that should get your attention. Even if you live somewhere, it rains all the time. This is already in your grocery bill because water isn't just stuff in your glass. It's your bread, it's your electricity, the chip on your phone, the AI. You asked a question this morning. Every time fresh water gets scarcer, the price is basically everything you touch goes up. So this is the story that happens when the one resource we all assumed was free stops being free. Who is fighting over it right now? And why the country that figures this out first is going to have the kind of grip Saudi Arabia had with oil. None of this is a prediction. It's already happening. When you hear the words resource war, your brain goes to oil, tanks in desert pipelines in the Middle East. But the war that's actually closest to breaking out right now is over a river. Ethiopia is one of the poorest countries on the planet. No oil, no gas, no coastline. What it has is 120 million people, half of them without reliable electricity at home, and mountains that river pour off of. So Ethiopia made a bet, build the biggest hydroelectric dam in Africa, generate cheap power, run some factories, climb out of poverty. Construction started in 2011, right on the Blue Nile. Quick bit of geography because it's the whole story. The Nile you learned about with the pyramids is actually two rivers. The White Nile comes up from Central Africa, the Blue Nile comes down out of Ethiopia, and it delivers around 80% of the water that eventually reaches Egypt. So Ethiopia just built a dam on the main artery. Now look at Egypt. Almost every Egyptian lives crammed along the Nile and its delta, because everything else is desert. The country pulls about 97% of its water, its fresh water, out of that one river. If the dam upstream starts holding water back, less reaches Egypt. Fields too dry, drinking water gets right. We are talking about a country of 100 million people with a hand on its road. Picture your upstairs neighbor getting to decide how much water comes through the only pipe into your entire building. Tension isn't new. 50 years ago, Egypt President Anwar Sadat said a line people still quote: "We will not die in thirst in Egypt. We will go to Ethiopia and die there." Former UN Secretary General himself, Egyptian, said the next war in region would be over water, not politics. For decades, that sounded like drama. And then the dam opened September 2025. Ethiopia's Prime Minister stood in front of Africa's heads of state and called it a historic day. The same day, Egypt fired a letter to the UN Security Council, calling it a violation of international law and reserving the right to all measures allowed under the UN Charter. Ethiopia wrote back the same afternoon and called Egypt's position colonial thinking. Egypt's been shipping weapons to Ethiopia's neighbors. Even Trump tried to step in and broker it. Nobody has signed anything. Two nations over one river, no deal. And the Nile is just the famous one. In Southeast Asia, China has built 12 dams on the upper Mekong. That's the river that feeds around 70 million people downstream. A Cambodian fisherman told Al Jazeera he used to pull 10 kilos of fish day out of that river. Now it's 1 or 2. How do we feed the family, he asked. Cambodia and Vietnam can't do anything about it because the decisions get made upstream in Beijing. In South Asia, India and Pakistan, 60 years splitting the Indus River under a treaty that survived 4 wars between 2 nuclear-armed enemies. 60 years, 4 wars. The treaty held through all of it. Then in spring 2025, India suspended all of it, just like that. 3 regions, 3 fights, and every one of them runs on the same simple math. There is less water every year and more people who want to control it. Now the part where this stops being a foreign news story and shows up in your kitchen. You drink maybe 2 or 3 liters of water a day, and you never think of water as scarce because it's right there. But that's not most of the water you actually use. Most of it is hidden inside your food. Once you count that, the real number is more like 3 to 4,000 liters per person per day. You never see it because it got spent somewhere up the chain. Irrigating a field, watering livestock, running a processing plant. Scientists call this virtual water. Let me walk you through one ordinary American breakfast in your coffee. About 140 liters went into that 1 cup. Once you count growing and processing the beans, 2 eggs, close to 400 liters, and a toast, little butter, slice of cheese, half of avocado, and that avocado is another 100 or so. You've blown past 1,000 liters of water before you've touched the tap. Now, put a steak on the table for dinner. To produce 1 kilo of beef, counting the feed, the animal, the whole operation takes around 1,000 liters of water. That is roughly what a human being drinks in 15 years in one steak. I'm vegan, so I'll let that number sit there without the lecture. This is why farming, not factories, not cities, uses about 70% of all the fresh water on the planet. More than every industry and every city on earth combined. And it's the moment the water crisis quietly turns from a geography problem into an economic problem. One that lands on all of us. The mechanism is boringly simple. A big farm region hits a drought. The harvest shrinks, the prices go up, and not just there, everywhere, because food is a global market. You've already lived this. In 2012, a brutal drought cooked an American corn belt and pushed corn to a record around $8 a bushel. Corn isn't just corn. It's cattle feed, chicken feed, the syrup in your soda. When corn spikes, meat and groceries follow a few months behind. Droughts do the same thing to the produce aisle. Almonds, lettuce, tomatoes, most of this country's fruits and nuts come out of one state that's been fighting for water for a decade. And this isn't a vibe, it's measured. Study after study finds the same thing. One extreme heat or drought event keeps pushing food prices up for a full year afterward. In rich countries and poor ones alike, the drought and the price tag are usually a month apart, so nobody connects them, but it's the same event. You are paying a water bill you didn't know you had, and at the checkout a month later. And there is a brand new customer for all this water that almost nobody was talking about until recently. You. Every time you ask ChatGPT something, somewhere a data center evaporates around half a liter of water just to keep from overheating. That cooling water often comes straight from the same city supply people are drinking. Roughly 100 words of AI text cost a few bottles of water. Microsoft reported pulling close to 8 billion liters in a single year, and that's only the direct data center use. One of the first researchers to actually measure the water footprint of AI, a professor named Shaolei Ren, grew up in a mining town in northern China where the water got turned on 30 minutes a day. His family kept buckets by every tap. When he finally calculated how much water it takes to train one large AI model, the number didn't shock him. What shocked him was that none of the companies were talking about this. And this is already hitting the ground. In 2025, Amazon built one of the biggest AI data centers in the world in Indiana. To pour the concrete, they pumped groundwater, and by that summer, local officials had opened an investigation because a cluster of nearby homes and wells that ran dry. Meanwhile, the UN is projecting that by 2030, 5 years out, the world will want 40% more fresh water than it can actually supply. If you want to see where this road ends, you don't need a computer model. It already happened twice. There is a town in Central Asia called Minyak. Go there today and you will find fish and chips, big rusting trawlers sitting in the middle of the desert, 150 kilometers from the nearest water. It's not a junkyard. The sea they used to float on is just gone. Minyak sat on the Aral Sea, one of the 4 lakes on the planet. 2 rivers fed it. Then back in the 1950s, planets decided to divert those rivers to grow cotton, and they dug thousands of miles of canals. The cotton grew, the quotas got hit, and the sea dropped every single year until today less than a fifth of it is left. What got left behind is salt and chemical dust bowl, and the wind picks that poison and carries it hundreds of miles away. Downwind up to 90% of the women and children have anemia. The fishing industry, 1,000 tons a year, is simply dead. So is most of the town. And before you file that one under somewhere far away, we did the exact same thing in America. Owens Lake, California in 1913, Los Angeles built an aqueduct and drained it to water a growing city. Within about 20 years, the lake was a dry, toxic flat, and it became the single largest source of dust pollution in the entire United States. LA has spent over $1 billion just trying to keep the dust down. Same story, different flag. A Dead Sea doesn't come back with an apology. Once it tips, it stays tipped. Okay, so if fresh water is the new oil, the obvious question is, who is sitting on the reserves? Because it's wildly unequal. Add up all the water Egypt and Ethiopia are about to fight over, plus the Mekong, plus the whole India-Pakistan mess, all of it, and it still doesn't equal what's sitting in a single lake in Siberia. Lake Baikal holds around 20% of full down frozen fresh water on Earth. One lake, more than 5 out of the Great Lakes combined. If humanity drank nothing but Baikal, it would last about 5,000 years. Now, the part that's actually above us, those giant lakes I just mentioned, hold something like a fifth of all the surface fresh water on the planet. The United States and Canada are sitting on one of the greatest freshwater reserves that exists. On paper, America is a water superpower. Because at the very same time, the American West is running one of the worst water deficits on Earth. The Colorado River supplies about 40 million of people across 7 states, and it's so overdrawn it barely reaches the ocean anymore. Lake Mead, the biggest reservoir in the country, fell to record lows, and in 2021, the federal government declared the first official water shortage in the river's history. Under the Great Plains, the Ogaya Aquifer, water that took thousands of years to collect, is getting pumped out faster than it will ever refill. This is both things at once: the country with the most and region running out. That gap is the whole game. And notice who is paying the attention. China has 20% of the world's people and about 6% of its fresh water, mostly in the wrong part of the country. So China is building the largest transfer project in human history. Thousands of miles of canals, tens of billions of dollars, moving water from its wet south to its dry north. And it's still not enough. Chinese planners keep floating proposals to pipe in water from Siberia, from Baikal itself. On paper so far, but the fact that a superpower keeps drawing the map tells you exactly where this is heading. Now, just having the water isn't enough. You have to protect it and manage it, or the number on paper means nothing. And we are not good at this, American cities lose a stunning amount of treated water to pipes that are 100 years old. It leaks into the ground before it ever reaches a faucet. Flint, Michigan poisoned its own kids through the pipes. Jackson, Mississippi lost running water for weeks. We have water superpower that can't reliably get clean water across town. Having the resource and wasting the resource turns out to be the same country. Meanwhile, Wall Street already figured out where this goes. In December 2020, the Chicago Exchange, they launched the first ever water futures financial contracts tied to the price of water in California. Up to that point, the exchange traded oil, gold, wheat, natural gas. Now officially water. Most people never heard a word about it. Every serious investor heard it loud and clear. Water is now a thing whose price mostly moves one direction, up. You might remember Michael Burry, the guy from The Big Short, who called the 2008 crash. You know what he moved into afterward? Water. Specifically, farmland with water rights attached. And he wasn't alone. Investment funds started buying up American farmland. And in a lot of cases, they didn't really want the dirt. They wanted the water rights. One fund manager called water a $1 trillion opportunity back in 2000. By 2024, a third of big institutional investors had each put over $500 million into water. And it gets darker. A Saudi-owned company leased land out in Arizona desert to grow alfalfa, which is hay, pumping almost unlimited Arizona groundwater, and then shipping that hay back to Saudi Arabia to feed cows over there. See it with what that actually is. A water poor country reached across the entire planet and drained an American disguised as a bale of hay. That's for sure. That's virtual water as business model. Arizona finally started clawing those leases back in 2024. A UN official has openly warned about water turning into a tradable commodity like oil. Senator Elizabeth Warren introduced a bill to stop water rights from being traded on future markets. It's stuck in Congress and the trading goes on. So who wins the next few decades? Not automatically the country with the most water, the one that starts treating water as a strategic asset before the crisis instead of after. Some places already do it. Israel, a country that's mostly semi-desert, recycles about 90% of its wastewater. Singapore covers around 40% of its needs with recycled water and treats it like normal plumbing, not science fiction. The solution already exists. The only question is who builds them early and who waits until the reservoir hits the record low. So, because the water crisis almost never shows up with a bang, it creeps. It's years of small problems. Nobody calls an emergency, and then one day it's reversed. That's exactly how the RLC died. Nobody chose it on a Tuesday. They just kept making the small, easy choice until the sea was gone. All states realized what they were sitting on only after the whole world already depended on them. With water, that window is just now cracking open. And whoever walks through it first, a country, a state, honestly, even you, paying attention early, gets a serious head start. So before you close this, 3 things today free. No course, no newsletter, no link in my bio. 1, go find out where your tap water actually comes from. The river, the reservoir, the aquifer, and whether it's under stress. Your water utility publishes it, and the US Drought Monitor will show you your own country in about 30 seconds. Most people have no idea. Take 2 minutes and stop being most people. Number 2, pick one meal this week and do the water math on it. Just notice the hidden number. You don't have to go vegan on Wednesday. Just see the thing you couldn't see before. That one's on the house. 3, next time a headline blames inflation for your grocery bill, ask a sharper question. Where was the drought? 9 times out of there is a dry field somewhere upstream of your receipt. If this rewired how you look at a plastic bottle, even a little, subscribe. That's the only thing I'll ever ask you for, and it's free too. I make this because this stuff matters, not to sell you the weather. So here's my real question for you, and I want the answer in the comments. 20 years from now, does a bottle of water cost more than a gallon of gas? I've got a guess. Tell me yours.